That's us. That's us live. Couple of technical little gremlins there. So if there's any justice in this world, people will start joining now, and you'll see the little counter in the top as people start to come in and realise that we have actually made it and we're live, and they've not all disappeared to the pub and decided that they're not going to bother. So we had a few technical issues there. People they call it. I believe they call it the Murray of the family Phillips effect when that happens. So
that's right. You'll need to ask Billy Watson about that experience and he'll vouch for that, Steve.
Well, I know. I think Billy uses BeLive product, which I use as well, but I've moved to this new one and it's actually quite good. So, but anyway, we got there in the end, mate. So
Yes.
well done you, or well done your daughter or your wife or whoever.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So people are joining us now. They might have thought we got off to a false start, but that's good. It makes for a better interview, Murray, when we're late, because they get all apprehensive and excited. Is it happening? Is it not happening? And then it does, and they have a great night anyway.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of interest here, Murray. People are very interested in common law, but they want to see common law that works, and they want to see common law that's easy to understand. So let's just start with a wee sort of introduction to yourself, a wee sort of background to yourself and where you've came from and how you started getting interested in common law and how you've managed to get so much knowledge in it so fast.
Yeah, okay. Right, guys. Just to kick it all off, a lot of you will be probably wondering why I changed the status of my name from Murray Phillips to Murray of the family Phillips. The reason for that is because the state, when you're getting registered at birth, they give you the all capital name. That is them basically registering you as their property. So with me changing my status to Murray, I'm simply Murray and I'm of the family Phillips, which is my surname. So me doing that is me basically breaking off the chains of slavery, right? Now, I'm going to get into this in a bit more detail, but just to keep things nice and simple, we're going to do everything tonight in layman's terms, and it's to make it very, very digestible and easy for people to understand that I've never even probably looked at stuff like this before. So that's the reason why I've changed my names. It's to get rid of the slave, basically the corporate-owned, the state-owned name, the person. I've got rid of that, and I'm going back to my natural self, which is my birthright name, which was my gift that my mother and father gave me when I was born.
And how do you do that, Murray? Do you just state that you're now called that, or do you have to do something else?
There's all different things that you can do, Steve. At this moment in time, again, I'm just a normal man. I'm a man that's learned this through time, through listening to guys like John Harris and Robert Sproul and all these various people that have been practicing this type of stuff for a long time. So this is another good thing for people that are watching tonight, that they can see that I'm just an ordinary bloke, normal guy that's got a real interest in truth and fact. And I wanted to know my rights as a man, and I also wanted to know, how the law actually works. Not the complexity of the colours of law and the legal legislation and everything else like that.
Okay. So do you have to register something to change it to Murray of the family Phillips, or do you just declare that you're now that name?
Well, Steve, I think it would be probably right, if you're asking me a question like that, I would say that it's probably right to do. I haven't done it yet, right? And I am living proof that I've used common law on several occasions over the last 18 months or so, or longer than that, actually, that whereby I've got first-hand knowledge and experience of using this to protect me, to hang on to my rights and freedoms, whereby the police has tried to enforce policy which requires consent. So, in effect, it works if you don't have to go down the official line, which I intend to do, actually. The more advanced I've got at this, I'm going to verify my claim with verifying and documenting my claim, opposed to just claiming it, you know what I mean, by word of mouth. Yeah, so like I say, I thoroughly intend to do that, but I'm going to engage with other people that are further advanced than me to get a wee bit of advice, because, I mean, I just believe that it's verification, verification, proof of claim, and documented. You can't go wrong. You know, so to me, it makes perfect sense to go and take that step and get it verified and documented. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And what made you get interested in it then, Murray? Because you've got a job. You used to play professional football. You know, what team did you play for actually? Just so people get a wee bit of background on.
When I was a boy, Steve, I'm an Ayrshire lad, and I signed an S form with Kilmarnock Football Club. I played local with Ardere Colts Boys Club, and then I was picked up. Me and Michael MacArthur from Ardrossan. He went to Aberdeen, and I went to Kilmarnock. And then I progressed my career from there. And I was a bit right through the youth development, and I ended up an apprentice at Kilmarnock Football Club, working as part of the ground staff. And then I had right through the youth system, and about 3 years in the reserves. And unfortunately for guys like myself, young local guys, Kilmarnock were starting to go big regarding into the Premier League in Scottish football, where they were signing guys like Alan McCoy, Tommy Burns, and people like that. Now, for young guys just learning their trade and cutting their teeth in pro football, it was very difficult to oust these guys for a position in the first team. So unfortunately for guys like myself, you had to be really, really good. So therefore, I kind of languished in the reserves for about 3 years and never just quite cut the mustard regarding staking a claim for first team regular, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you're a regular attendee at some of the protests. You go to George Square a lot, and you mentioned Robert earlier. So you've learned a lot from Robert, and you got interested. So you felt that the common law side was going to be, especially with everything that's happening, that did you feel a certain need, if you like, as a man to be able to defend yourself using common law? Did you feel that was going to become important because of the way the tyranny, if you like, was actually going?
Absolutely, Steve. I think that what they don't teach you at school, right? They don't teach you the law, the law of the land, and they don't teach you your rights. So I believe that was intentional. You weren't taught these things to allow the whole commercial game and trickery and illusion. Now, again, I'm using very strong words here, and I'm maybe overstepping the mark a wee bit. That's maybe for more people with more advanced research on the subject that we're talking about tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to try not to be as advanced in the use of words that I use. I'm going to try and keep it primary and fundamental values so that people can relate to what we're talking about, and it doesn't sound too outlandish and too challenging and too scary, if you like, you know.
Yeah. What do you think are the sort of common misconceptions that people have about common law? That because people think they can almost do anything under it. But you've got to have a certain amount of decorum about you. You've got to be honourable. There's certain rules of the game. You can't do any harm to people. It's not as if you can do anything you want and claim that common law is going to protect you. That it still is a law, isn't it? It's still a set of rules.
Yeah, this is where you can get into debate with people, and it's quite simple to diffuse that when people come at you with, there's got to be laws, there's got to be discipline. They're missing the whole concept. Common law is basically all about, through the Christian church, I believe, it was to protect people from tyrannous authority, tyrannous kings and queens back in the day, and nowadays tyrannous governments. Now, this is the thing where people can say, people will just misuse that. Well, you can't, because it's basic. The basic fundamental values of it is to protect you from tyranny. Now, an example of that is people say, but there's legislation there to protect us for this, that, and the next thing. Well, it's so simple in regards to common laws. There are no loss, no harm, no injury, no damage to other people's property, and no victim, no crime in law. But what the authorities tend to do is, through governments and the police, the legal societies, they turn that into a commercial opportunity, whereby they're turning into commerce, where there's an opportunity through the deception of people not knowing this, that they can turn it into a money-making situation, whereby they're enforcing rule, regulation, policy, acts and statutes that come from Parliament. So if you've not been taught this and you don't understand that these guys are using the colours of law, they're going away from the actual basics and fundamentals of law of the land, natural law. Yep. So they've basically been very, very clever and shrewd, but they've been very deceitful, Steve. And this is the message that I want to put out there to people tonight, so that they get 100% understanding of how the deception, the trickery, and the illusion is crafted. And when I say crafted, I mean crafted, because this is the occult. And again, using words like occult, I said I was going to be very careful tonight with the use of language and words. Now, just to explain to people, when I use strong words like occult simply means hidden. That's all occult means. So when you start to look at things and you think about words and the usage of words for their simple, true meaning, hidden. Why does anything need to be hidden? Why can't things just be transparent? That's my question.
When did they start this? When did they start to weave their magic spells over common law and to bring in this sort of craft of law? Because they have turned it into an occult art, if you like, of law, haven't they?
Yeah. What we'll do here is, Steve, we'll take you back to the kind of start and I'll explain it in the process. What actually happened is when your mother and father had you, right, newborn child, they went down to the registry office. They get down to the registry office and they register you as a newborn baby, human being. What the state do then is they register you, and through the birth certificate is a negotiable instrument. Now, what that means is they're registering you as a person. A person is a dead legal fiction with no right of mind to contract. So they're basically registering you as their property of the state, whereby they are claiming that they own your ass, basically. That is the simplest form that I can describe what is actually happening there in that transaction. So effectively, they're registering you through your birth certificate. They are then claiming that they've created you on paper through birth registry, and therefore you, the person, the dead legal fiction, is the property of the state. When that is quite deceitful when you think about it, because your mother and father are your true creators, because they created you through the natural, so therefore they are the creator of you, not the state. But the state's used an opportunity through registry to claim the deeds, if you like. They give you the title, which is, they use the natural gift, which is your name that was given to you by your mother and father, and they turn that into what's called the all capital letters name. That is the title. They call it title, and it becomes, when you talk about titles and properties, like I've said there, you are then title deeds. They claim the title deeds of you as a human being, and under the natural law, no man or woman has got anything over any other man or woman. That is, we're all equal in the eyes of the law, so nobody can claim that. So that's where the deception comes in,
Yeah. And well, this is the problem with some of these politicians, and even you get these cops who think they're above the law, abusing their powers and things like that, and again, back to this, we are all equal. I was thinking about this today, Murray, because you sent me a video and there was, you guys were talking to somebody, and we could show that video, we could talk about that, but it's this thing about getting your standing. There's a phrase around it. I'm not brilliant on common law. What's the phrase around standing? Establish your standing. Is that it?
Yeah. What it is, Steve, is when you encounter the police work by assumption and presumption. Now, before we get into that, how it works is we're governed and policed by consent. Now, the police swear an oath of office to uphold the law and to serve and protect the people. That's it. So they're public servants and they've sworn that oath of office. But what happens with the police is they change their status, and this is where the trickery and the deception comes in again. They have no right to change their status from police constable, who swore an oath of office to uphold the law and to serve and protect the people, into a guy that's a police officer that have given themselves this status, whereby if they can get the consent, and this is the thing that people don't understand, people believe that legal legislation, acts and statutes are the law. This is where I need to clarify this, and I need to spell it out to the guys that are watching tonight and MD that I encounter, that this is where the trickery and the deception comes in again, whereby they use a thing called the colours of law. legal legislation, all legal legislation requires the consent from the man or woman before the police can change their status from constable to officer. So they've got to try and get jurisdiction over you by your consent in order for them to enforce rule, regulation, and policy. You see the difference here?
Yeah, and does that turn, you're saying that these rules, regulations, acts, statutes, they're not law?
No.
But when you consent to them, do they become law, technically?
Absolutely. Then this is where I could go back to: no man or woman has any power over you, authority over you in natural law. But because they use this system with the colours of law, and they're clever people at the end of the day, the Legal Society and Bar Association is very, very clever people here. But it's a misuse of the public office. And this is where, if you know your stuff, you can actually take them to task. Because what they're effectively doing is they're violating your rights as a man or woman, and they're also reneging on their oath of office when they have sworn an oath of office to uphold the law and to serve and protect the people. Now, where does that change when they're swearing an oath to serve and protect, when they're then trying to enforce rule, regulation, and policy to take your hard-earned money off you for not committing a true crime in law? That's where the massive deception comes in.
And what are the sort of what are the benefits then, Murray? You've got knowledge. Think of the benefits. You've used it a few times, and it's managed to help you in certain situations, or you've managed to help other people. Now, you're not a confrontational guy, and this caused no controversy thing, and not being confrontational and just keeping calm in these situations. I think that's very important.
Massively.
Helped you in these situations, yeah.
A 1,000,000%, Steve. Now, this is where people misconstrue the whole idea, and there's maybe the rascal element in society that think they can maybe get away with no paying for this and for. It's not about that. The common law, natural law, it's all about honour. It's all about standing in honour, speaking to people with respect and honour and courtesy, and using the law that was provided to the people to protect people from the tyrannous kings and queens back in the day, or tyrannous authoritarianism, whereby you have a right to protect yourself from, abuse, if you like. So therefore, people, human nature, right? Human nature, people will always look for ways of getting out of doing this or getting out of paying for. That's not what this is about at all. And this is where I've got to make myself crystal clear that's not what we stand for. We stand for laws that are there for all to respect and abide by, and to use your knowledge of those laws to protect yourself from right from wrong. It's all about right from wrong,
Yeah. And there was a situation that came up recently there, Murray, and we probably won't show a video. I'd probably rather talk through it. There was a situation that came up where somebody was doing something, but there was no harm being caused, there was no crime being caused, but the police were actually going to arrest him. Is that correct?
That's right, Steve. What happens here is, and it's happened for centuries, what happens is the police are not taught this, right? So therefore, they don't really know the proper law either. There's a lot that they're not taught. And they think they've got the right and the authority and the jurisdiction over people, when we've taught them, in fact, that that's not the case, because we're all equalising the law. So what happened on Saturday, and I could talk about countless things that have happened that I've experienced, but I'm going to take the time to explain a couple of. I'll select them.
That was just this Saturday. Is that right? It's this Saturday right. in George Square. So there's a protest underway. Is that right?
Yeah, there was a peaceful gathering underway, and the police clocked a guy with a can of unopened, I might add, but it doesn't matter anyway. An unopened can of beer in his hand, and they come across and they ring fenced him. And there was inspectors, sergeants, and umpteen constables. And they ring fenced this guy, and they were going to arrest him, fine him for holding a can of beer. Now, it's the principle of the matter here. Now, right away, the guy's not committed a crime in law. because he's not caused any loss, harm or injury or damage to somebody's property. But these guys misreading the law think they're entitled to come and arrest a guy and fine a guy for holding a can of beer, which is not the case. And this is where I kind of intervened, and I asked the constables, the sergeants and inspectors, the standing here. I says, what's the standing here? This man stands under common law. Can you verify the crime that this man has committed in law? They choose to ignore quite a lot, and that's what's called establishing your standing. You've got to establish your standing, and that's what you do there, whereas you stand under common law where there's no loss, harm or injury, victim or damage to someone else's property. There is no crime in law, and that's a fact. So with them acting on this guy holding a can of beer, they were going to jump straight in and try and enforce rule, regulation and policy on him, which requires consent. But the guy knew his stuff, and the guy made it loud and clear and very, how can you put it, very honourable. It wasn't cheeky, it wasn't acting out of order or anything like that. He basically stated the facts that I do not consent to any legal legislation. I do not consent to anything like that. So he made it clear, but they carried on. And because of the fact there was plenty of witnesses and guys like myself, the common law knowledge, the situation would normally have happened there, whereby that guy would have been jailed and fined, arrested and jailed and fined. But because of the knowledge that we've got and we witnessed the situation, the man walked away a free man, and he never even signed for his ticket. That is the result you get out of knowing how to operate within the realms of the true natural law.
Yeah, and that was kind of helped there by the one, the common law standing, but two, the fact that there was a few you guys there. I think for a lot, so I think a lot of people are probably thinking, well, if I'm there myself and I don't have anyone, and a couple of cops come up and they accuse you of doing something, and what's the reaction going to be like then if you're pulling out these common law statements and saying, I don't consent and I don't...
Totally different, Steve. The name of the game, there was an incident happened in George Square about a year ago or something at the big stand-up X. Robert Sproul had used the common law to get the peaceful marchers to march from Glasgow Green to George Square. Now, we had unfortunately, a big ignoramus of an inspector there, and he was determined, he thought he knew better. But Robert called him.
That was the one, just for the point of this. So it started in Glasgow Green, is that right? And they weren't going to let them march.
They weren't going to let them march.
And I think they were at this sort of crazy tier 4 lockdown or whatever. They were in. Was it a lockdown? We were in a lockdown or something.
I think it was, Steve. I think it was, if I remember correctly.
So they're basically saying you shouldn't, because that changes, doesn't it, according to their crazy rules, that you've got the right to protest up to, and we'll maybe talk about that sort of human right to protest versus this ability for them to remove that right, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, they call it, what the police call it, the correct terminology there, Steve, is the qualifying.
Qualified right, yeah.
Qualified rights, they call it. Absolute nonsense. We have a right, an inalienable inherent right to peacefully assemble, freedom of speech, freedom to travel without hindrance. So for him to attempt to hijack that walk, that peaceful demonstration from point A to point B, was absolutely ridiculous. And that inspector could have got us into serious trouble for violating our rights as men and women, and for breaching his oath of office into the bargain. So Robert stood up to the plate, and he made the superior claim, it's called, where the people have the right to travel from point A to point B without hindrance. They're public servants, so they had to, what's the right terminology here? They had to make sure that we travel from A to B because it's their job without any problems. So Robert put that in place, whereby he made the superior claim, and they had to oblige, they had to do their job and make sure that they escorted us up through into George Square from the Glasgow.
So do you think that inspector knew that you guys had the superior claim, or do you think that are they hearing that for the first time and saying, oh, that sounds as if they know what they're talking about? You know what I mean? Like, if they don't know enough about it, you're not going to educate them there and then, and they might take offence that you're teaching them the law. That's their job, not yours. And I think that's the thing. Did they get their nose out of joint when you're starting to tell them that, and that's why how you behave yourself and how
you've got to be honourable.
The subtlety, it's a subtle person's
Absolutely.
game, isn't it?
Absolutely is, mate. You've got to do it with respect and honour. And I think, to answer your question there, I think that inspector, well, put it this way, it was allowed to happen. If he was,
I remember it.
If he was correct in what he was saying, the inspector, that wouldn't have been allowed to happen. So my question to you and the viewers is, Steve, why was that allowed the procession to take place? Why was it allowed to happen if the inspector was right? So we've proved him out to be telling lies to us there.
Yeah, absolutely. So that proved, but again, okay, so you get this situation, Murray, where we're all running about Edinburgh or Glasgow getting chased by the cops because we're not meant to be gathering, and we're not meant to be. Well, it's a peaceful gathering, protest, demonstration, rally. Call it what you will. We're turning up to because we're concerned members of the public, and we're not happy. And the police are. I mean, you've seen it, heavy-handed, heavy-handed policing, and they're there in numbers, and they're there to stop you, and they've split people up. Now, how do you get round that with a few choice words? Because that would be useful to know.
Well, this is the thing, Steve. I believe that this is why we're doing this tonight, and I'm going to continue to do this. I'm hoping to make contact with AJ Roberts and try and get on his show as well. I believe that people are not armed with the simplicity of knowing their rights and knowing how the law of the land works. And if we can make an impact by doing things that we're doing, I really do appreciate the opportunity you've gave me tonight here to come onto your platform, because I do realise I've got a big following, Steve. And I mean, if there's 8,500 to 10,000 people, I think, if I'm correct in saying that you've got as followers, then this is a great way to, in layman's terms, to arm people, peaceful people, with the right tools, the correct tools, to protect ourselves from a legal society that I believe some of them don't know what they're doing. Other ones will give it the bully boy tactics, follow instruction, which again takes you into the Nuremberg Code. Ignorance is no defence in the eyes of the law. So there's all different realms here that we can talk about. So I think, going back to what you were saying regarding, there's a lot of the coppers, they're following instruction, they're following orders, and they don't understand how the law works. Well, I take a lot of time and effort into engaging with the constables, the sergeants, the inspectors, and I try my best and be honourable, be respectful, and be courteous. And I try and build up a relationship where I'm actually stating facts to them about how the law works, and I know my rights as a man. And I've never once had any bother, Stephen. Not that I want to tempt any fate here, you know.
Yeah, of course.
But I think it's important that you execute your knowledge with your rights and how the law actually is supposed to work. If you can stick to that and be honourable and be courteous, I believe that you've got a bigger chance of executing it properly and getting a result out of it. And that's what we want to do. It's all about the end result.
Well, the result is not to be in the back of that van and heading away and having your day ruined. And again, beyond that point, so there's a couple of phases to this. There's the interaction piece where nothing's set in stone yet, and it can go either way. And I think what you're saying there, Murray, is how you approach that interaction can have a big impact on whether or what direction it goes in. The common law isn't a sort of silver bullet that you just pull out a couple of words and you say it, and then you say, I'm going to have you arrested and you're going to go to a Nuremberg trial. And in the law, because you could just get into the back of the van, and you might go to court and you could lose. Here's a classic example. The Nightclub Association took the government to court for this COVID passport, and the courts just booted it out today. Now, they wouldn't have went to that stage, Murray, if they didn't think they had a case. So what we have here is a tyrannous government making decisions and saying, well, we'll do what we want to do. And I think that's the point they're getting to now. They're actually turning into the tyrants and letting us see the tyranny. And I think today was one of their first sort of ways to come out and present themselves as that.
Yeah, right. I'm going to touch on something here that you've just said, Stephen. This is factual again. What generally happens is they will carry on and do what they're going to do because they think they know better. And what they've done over the past 18 months is they've carried on, they've fined people, they've gave people tickets, and they've jailed people. When this has went to court, went to the courts, almost, I can't remember precisely the percentage here, Steve, but most cases through the Corona Act 2020 have been thrown out.
Yep.
Now that speaks volumes that what I'm saying is that they have no right of claim. So therefore it's a void order, it's called, because they have not got jurisdiction over you because they haven't verified and documented their finding facts and conclusions whereby there's been a crime committed in law. So if they haven't verified and documented, but they've carried on and you've been arrested and jailed, then if it was me, it's not been me yet, as I said, I don't want to tempt fate, but if that was me, I would be certainly looking at going and having and making inquiries on how I could take action against them, because if they've had no right of claim and I haven't committed any crime in law, why should I have suffered and lay in a jail cell for a couple of nights or whatever and felt like a true criminal whereby I have not committed any crime in law? So I would be seriously looking at that, because like I say again, all the cases under the Corona Act 2020 or the COVID, whatever you want to call it, they've been proven that got to the court stages, the procedure. Most of them have been thrown out. And this is where I go back to talking about remaining in honour, where if you stick to the process of being in honour and standing under the law and using your knowledge, you do not end up in a situation where you maybe violate and commit a crime regarding a breach of the peace with the choice of language you use through being upset or whatever.
And they could maybe prove it in their court system. They could prove that you've.
But I want to add a very important point there, Steve, as well, just to elaborate a wee bit on that. Now, that's not saying that when you use it to like textbook, right? When you use it properly and you stick within the realms and use it properly, that's not to say that these individuals will tell lies and try and get you on a breach of the peace or something, because they've been known to do that as well.
Yeah.
They've been known, and this is why it's very, very important to have witnesses and to have people with similar knowledge whereby, or you can video them and use it as evidence against them. So witness or using your video on your phone, that is key. But I've heard of cases where they've took people's phones and stuff like that off them to get rid of that evidence. Mandy McGutt comes into mind for regarding stuff like that. You know what I mean? And
what do you think of this government position today, Murray, in terms of the nightclubs and the court throwing that out? I mean, where does common law stand there? Is there a common law argument, or are these guys? Is this their laws, their rules, their laws, and they can do whatever the hell they want?
Let's simplify it again, Steve. Now, this was part of one of my speeches when I was doing a wee bit of public talking. Now, again, I've only started to do a bit of public talk. It was never my thing to be. I think because of the knowledge I built up over the years, the research I'd done, I was desperate to say something to get, contribute. But it was never really my thing to be a public speaker, to be in the front line and all the rest of it. I was always very much in the background, but I just felt as if the time was right and I couldn't hold my wheest any longer, and I had to say something about the whole thing. What I said in one of my speeches just recently there, one of my public speaking, was COVID passport. Now, they've already said that double vaxxed, you can still transmit it. Right? You can still spread it. And now, wait a minute, I'm kind of losing the place a wee bit here. It was basically trying to make sense of whether somebody's been double vaxxed and they can spread it and they can still get it.
Yeah.
So why are they allowed into an establishment that when somebody like myself that's chose not to take the double vax because of the risks that's involved and everything else, plus the political side of it? What difference is it between me not being vaxxed and somebody that's been double vaxxed when they can still spread it and they can still get it? What is the difference there? There's absolutely no difference.
But especially, Murray, when our families and grandparents and great-grandparents, we built those streets where labour and taxis and those pubs and nightclubs, they're in buildings that our relatives built.
Yeah,
they're ours. They can't exclude us from that because of this. And as you say, there's no reason to do it, no scientific reason.
That's the point I was coming to there, Steve. I would see the point if there was a transparent, and I use the word very loud and clear, if there was transparency into them doing it for a specific reason. For instance, if this vaccination was absolutely sound and safe, and I'm going to call it the pandemic because that's how I honestly feel about this whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
The pandemic was true and proper, and it met the status of a true pandemic, and the vaccination met the requirements and it was proved safe, then everything would be on board. I would be on board and I'd be quite happy to go along with the whole thing. But as you know, as we've had several discussions over the years now, there's a lot of this is not making sense, and we've got a different set of beliefs, and we've got proofs and facts that we're not going to get into tonight. That's another story for maybe another night. But my point I'm making here is that the vaccination, it doesn't make sense, and the COVID passport, the vaccine passport, does not make sense, and we know why it doesn't make sense without getting into the realms of another conversation.
Yeah. So, I mean, so do people have rights then? Like, obviously, you can say you're exempt, but again, you're playing the game. I don't really want to enter into the game. You know, you could. I mean, I don't know if my nightclubbing days are over, Murray. I'm sure I've still got. I could still pull something at the bag. I'm sure, but
you've still got a moonwalk left in you, yet, Steve.
I've got something. It might look a bit different for what they're doing up there, but no, I've still got something to offer that world. You know what I mean? So if I fancy it, then I'd like to be able to do it without any. I don't want
being
to
discriminated against.
I don't go into shops with no mask on and say I'm exempt. It's I don't do that. I was a bit gutted when I flew to Ibiza last year.
Yeah.
And it was very, very tight at the time. And I had to do a lot of negotiating to get through with no mask on. But it was actually quite interesting. I was jumping through hoops. It took me 45 minutes. There was a wee bit of, and then she's saying, you need a doctor's letter. I'm saying, well, I'm giving you something that's better than a doctor's letter. But I still, I wasn't going to get on the plane.
Yeah.
Either wearing a mask, they were going to no mask, or I had to convince them. So I managed to convince no mask, a doctor's letter, or I had to convince them. So I managed to convince them and got there. But again, that was just about standing in honour and a bit of banter, a bit of patter, a bit of salesmanship, dare I say. And this is all kind of sales money, isn't it? Getting outcomes that you actually want to achieve. But I don't want to play in the space and say, I'm going to go to a shop or I'm going to go to a nightclub and I'm actually exempt, because then we've allowed it to happen. And this can't happen, this COVID passport. Now, I was holding out a lot of hope for the nightclubs. I thought they were onto something. I'm surprised that got thrown out so quickly. Is there something in that? Is there anything they can...
Again, Steve, the whole thing doesn't stand up like we've just discussed, right? Whereby the vaccine passport and the actual vaccine itself with the safety and everything else, it doesn't stand as far as I'm concerned. And I'm trying to be careful with. I wanted to basically stick to simplifying the common law and how to use it to protect yourself. You and I both know, right, the reason why this is all taking place. We've discussed, and MD has done the research. I mean, you've obviously done an awful lot of research over the years. So have I, over a decade worth of research. We know exactly. We knew that this was all coming to society a long time ago. So again, that is a conversation for another day, for a different possible audience. Do you know what I mean? Not that I'm not dismissing what you're saying to me, but I just believe that I just would like to concentrate getting this message across to people, to get them to understand the importance of the tools that we're providing them to protect ourselves from what's coming and what's going to come in this fall and winter. We know what's coming. We know what's coming because we know that this has all been structured and planned for a long time.
So what do you think then, Murray? So what do you predict is going to happen in the next couple of months, and why do you think common law is going to prove to be important to people?
Common law is the key to unlock the door, Steve, to bring this whole system down. If we can get the majority of people at this moment in time, there's probably a 30-70 split on people that have done research and are absolutely clear in what's happening today in current affairs. There's 70% of the population know fine well that this doesn't sit right. The official narrative, it doesn't sound right, and they've kept chopping and changing, and they know it's not sitting well with them, but they've not done the research to understand and have the answers that we've got of why this is all happening. So I think this is a massive project for guys like us to continue raising awareness and giving the people the answers to exactly why this is happening, who's behind it, and what the end game is. If we can create and raise awareness and give people that information of why this is all happening, who's doing it and what the end game is, what we can do then, Steve, is we can then tip the scales of the percentage game, whereby we live in a democratic society whereby we go with the majority. So if we can awaken the people to the truth and facts of what's happening in modern day living, that we can then tip those scales in to get the majority of people to say, now that we know exactly what's happening, we're not having this. We've been fucking sold, sorry for swearing, but I get quite passionate about this. We have been sold down the river, and this is the biggest lie ever known to mankind, and that's a fact. And I risk sounding outlandish and passionate in the conspiracy theory thing, which I totally dismiss. As you know, the conspiracy theory tag was something that was flung in there to ridicule anybody that had a bit of common sense and could ask questions and get closer to the truth. That was an old tactic that was used. We'll call them conspiracy theorists, and we'll ridicule them, and then the
it's the same as anti-vaxxer now. I mean, the name the sort of anti-vaxxer. I mean, that's worked a charm. I mean, I saw somebody saying something the other day, and a guy said, "Oh, you're not one of those anti-vaxxers," and it was what he'd said. It was just
immediate dismissal.
Immediate, you're an anti-vaxxer. Nothing you say from this point on, because I now look at you as an anti-vaxxer, and that's good enough. That's how powerful they've made that little statement, Murray.
Absolutely, Stephen. And again, we were handing out Moira and a couple of other chaps. We were in Kilmarnock a couple of weeks ago. Moira had appealed for people from Ayrshire to come down and give them a hand. So Graham Crawford and myself and Billy McCullough, I think it was Billy. It's the first time I met Billy. Excuse me if I forget your name wrong or whatever, but there was a few of us anyway in Kilmarnock, and we were handing out the Light newspaper. We were handing out Moira's book, Questioning Lockdown, and we were also handing out information regarding the yellow card reporting scheme, the government's yellow card reporting scheme. Now, what I found astounding, Steve, was the amount of people in Kilmarnock High Street who had no idea what the government's yellow card reporting scheme was. And those people have went and took 2 vaccinations, are probably going to go in and possibly take boosters for something that they didn't know what the adverse reaction were going to be. I mean, when I presented them with that information about I gave them the facts and figures at the amount, I think it was 1,600 people in the UK alone have died with reaction to this voluntary experimental gene therapy. I also stated the amount, it was over 1 million people have had serious adverse reactions regarding blood clots to the brain, heart attack, blood clots, absolutely life-changing serious illnesses. Now, if people had done their due diligence and had made inquiries about what is the severity, is this safe, this experimental gene therapy, I think you'd have probably found, Steve, that a lot of these people, when they had actually had an opportunity to see the risks that was involved in taking this, bearing in mind it was left to on a voluntary basis, whereby the legal society or the government were escaping liability because they're putting onus on you that, well, you volunteered for it. You know what I mean?
Well, a lot of it's about that, isn't it? Even when you look at the wording of things like, like register or submit. Submit's an interesting one, isn't it? So, because when you look at the word you submit, you submit to something like that's on these buttons, fill in a form, register, apply, and then hit submit. When you submit, you're giving away your authority, aren't you? You're agreeing your consent. You're submitting to them.
Yeah, how that works as well with when you're a man and not a person, get back to lawful legal. A man has rights and freedoms. When you sign for anything or you register for anything, you're then giving away your rights and freedoms, and what you're getting back in return is benefits and privileges. Is what you get when you go to the jail.
Mm-hmm.
I can't be any clearer than that. When I'm obviously appealing to the viewers tonight. When you're a man and you stand under the laws of the land, you've got inalienable inherent rights and freedoms, and you can exercise them when you know who you are and you know how the law works. When you sign and register for anything, you automatically are giving away your powers, your natural powers to protect yourself, and you're getting back in return benefits and privileges, which is a whole different ballgame.
Mm-hmm.
Just for the viewers there, just to get them to understand how that actually works.
And Murray, we're moving into this 3-month period. We're going to be potentially looking at lockdowns. They're going to potentially
state all over again. Yep.
Yep. A dark winter potentially, and I'm a positive half glass full guy, and I know you are the same as well, Murray. But you know, if a train's coming down the track and we're on the we're on the track, then I can't manifest that train not to be coming at me. If it disappears, you know, the train is coming. We have the ability to assess a situation. We can read the road and we can see what's happening here. Now, I don't like what it's looking like for the next 3 months based on where these tyrants are going.
Yeah.
So we're going to get to these situations where they're going to try and pull some lockdowns out the bag, or fire break lockdowns, and they're going to do this tiered thing. Now, I found this particularly disturbing when they did this. If you're in Glasgow, you can't drive to Perth or Edinburgh because you're tier 3 and they're tier 2, and never the two shall meet. So your local authority border is a hard border, if you want to look at it like that. That's where they got us, and I felt that I think they criminalised our whole nation then. Because
absolutely.
I think for the first time in their lives, a lot of people were out driving and thinking, oh, you know, an old couple say, or are we going to over at the border? We better know. And is that police car? Oh, there's a police car behind. Are they looking at us? Have we done some? You know, and they've never thought that in their life. And so, where does the common law help us there, Murray? Because we want to be able to push back with if they start doing this, and you say, you know, I've got human rights to travel this land.
Yes.
Right. But again, I want to get from A to B. I don't want to be bundled into a cop shop for the weekend. I want to get there. You know, I don't want to. So three outcomes, Murray. They try to stop me going somewhere. I want to get to where I'm going to. I'm going to get returned home, or I'm going to end up in a cop shop. That's the 3 potential outcomes. Now, I'd like to use common law to get from A to B, and then not to be able to stop me.
Yeah. Here's how it works, Steve. This is the thing. Going back to me personally, I never stopped living my life, obviously within reason. I never stopped travelling, going and meeting my colleagues and friends, family and everything else. Never once, because I knew my rights and I knew how the law actually worked. And any time I encountered the constables, I used my common law knowledge, and I was never hindered. My travels, my freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom to travel, all my inalienable inherent rights stayed intact because I knew my rights as a man and I knew the law of the land and how it works. So I have never altered the way, obviously within reason. Again, I couldn't go to pubs and things because other people were adhering to it because they had bought into the illusion and the trickery that's performed. And through lack of understanding your rights and understanding how the law works, people felt obliged to follow which is called legal legislation. The Corona Act 2020 is simply the government asking you to adhere to their guidelines. That is simply all legal legislation is, Steve. And that is it all the time. Legal legislation requires consent. And if you don't give it any consent, then it does not, it doesn't apply to you. That's how simple it is. So if the police stop you when you're out travelling in your car and you get into one of these tiers you're talking about, you simply establish your standing. Before I even speak to you, I'm going to speak to you in courtesy, through courtesy. not giving you contract, it's called, right? So it's
Like
called,
joinder,
we're going
yeah.
back into, what you do is, for the viewers, you establish a standing. So you stop them and you don't speak to them. You explain that you're going to speak to them through courtesy. And you're a man, you're not a person. You do not consent to any legal legislation, and that includes this Corona Act 2020. So you want to see, they are required to identify themselves to you because they're public servants. So they've got duties and obligations to you. So the first thing you say is you establish a standing. I'm required to see your ID because I need to know that you are the real deal. So someone will play a wee game, and there's a thing called the rule of three, Steve. When you ask them once, some of them will say, I don't understand what you're saying to me. You'll say to them again, are you honouring your oath as a police constable? I'm not going to ask you again. I'm going to put you in your oath. You're either a constable or you're not. Are you honouring your oath as a police constable where you've sworn an oath of office to uphold the law and to serve and protect the people? Yes, I am. That's fine. Show me your warrant card. Eventually, some of them will show you right away. Others will play a wee game. Once they have verified,
they don't want you telling them what to do because it looks like you're getting control.
No, but the situation is, Steve, that they have sworn an oath of office and they have duties and obligations where they must show the member of the public their warrant card to verify that they are a police constable. And it says on their warrant card, PC such and such. So as soon as you've established that they're a police constable, they then can't shift into being a police officer. So they're there to uphold the law of the land.
So seeing the warrant card, visually citing the warrant card is an important part of that then, because you're basically saying, well, I've seen evidence then that you are a constable, not an officer, and I'm not going to give you the ability to move to officer because then you can.
Yes. So that's why.
So you're not saying, give me your warrant card because I'm being cheeky and I'm in charge here and I know my stuff. Yeah, you're basically saying, look,
let's rewind back to honour and courtesy. You're not in the front foot dictating to MD. You're simply asking him to perform duties and obligations that he has sworn an oath to do. Now that's a very serious offence, Steve, if they violate their oath. So he's sworn.
So they must show you that warrant card.
They are required to show their warrant card.
And requires a stronger word, isn't it? Required means you must. It's stronger than must. It's you have to. You have to do it.
Because they're under duties and obligations through terms of contract where they have signed up for this and they must show you the
Do you think that some of them, if they started to play silly buggers around that and said, well, I'm not showing you, that they might actually back down a bit more once they realise that you've been filming?
Absolutely do, Steve. I've done it on several occasions.
So if they play silly with it, you know, they might realise, wait a minute, I should have given him my warrant card there and I haven't, therefore I've broken my rules, therefore I'll let this guy go because I don't need the hassle today.
That sometimes happens, Steve, but what you do there is, if you can, I mean, I've came across some difficult ones and I've noted the presence of mind at the time to pull out my phone and start videoing. But what you do there is you pull out your phone, and if you've not got a witness, which you should try and have a witness as much as possible. If you've not, you pull out your phone. For instance, if you're in the car, lock the door, don't put the window down, start videoing them, and then you basically say to them, listen, I'm now going to video you and I'm going to use it as evidence against you in the court of law. I've asked you twice to identify yourself. You refuse to do that. You've got duties and obligations to do that and you're not doing it. Therefore, you've violated my rights and you've also violated your oath. You've reneged on your oath, which is a very serious offence. Do you understand what I'm saying, Constable? So once you start talking like that, and I mean, in honour and maintaining the courtesy aspect of it, they tend to buckle because they understand that you know what you're talking about, and that is a big factor.
Joe Bloggs is not going to say that. And to be honest, even although common law is getting more and more popular or widespread, the cops are not going to have heard that a lot either, because most of them would never have heard that. So they know they're listening to something that makes sense to them, but they don't know potentially why. But it's enough to rattle their cage in a nice way to say, well, maybe I am stepping over the line here, and maybe I am, you know, infringing on this guy's rights.
What I've done in the past is that I've explained it to them how it works, and they've went away on the radio to maybe the desk sergeant or to the superior. This guy's saying such and such, then they get the instruction, just let him carry on.
Okay.
It diffuses the whole situation. If they're in doubt, they'll go and radio in and they'll be told by
you could suggest that, couldn't you? You could say, well, phone your inspector, phone your commander or whatever.
Yeah, get me somebody that knows the law, because I'm not dealing, I'm refusing to deal with you anymore.
Yeah,
you know,
and it's not, you're not making it fair. And again, you've probably got a right to that as well, Murray. That
you have, of course you have.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, just very, very quickly there. I'm just going to pop it. If there's a couple of questions for the audience or anything. So, what is the best source to learn the basic stuff like dealing with the cops? Would be good to see in writing to print out. Is there any books or sources, Murray, in Scotland? I know there's a few guys in Scotland that printed off some stuff, and there's some good videos. Maybe we'll get a wee video collection, because you send me a lot of really good videos, and they're certainly worth sharing. And people, if you're giving it, this would probably be quite good for people, Murray. If you could make some videos of it. You watch a lot of stuff. And if you can say, I think this is good for Joe blogs at a basic level, or basic or small, medium or large, depending on your knowledge. But if you could put some of them in, we can create a wee library for people and they can start to digest. And that will save them hours and hours of research themselves, because you're kind of rubber stamping it. But with regards to written material, is there any suggestions there that you reckon would be quite good?
We've done a lot of work in the past, Steve, in particular Tommy Swan. Tommy Swan done a hell of a lot of good work.
I've not seen or heard for Tommy for a while. Is he still around?
No. We need to try and get Tommy. We need to try and engage with Tommy and get him back into the fold again. Tommy done a lot.
Yeah, he was very, very good.
Tommy's a very intelligent young man, and he's very astute, and he's very honourable. Tommy, see, even any time I witnessed or I assisted Tommy, or he assisted me, Tommy knows how to conduct himself when he's standing on it and be courteous at all time. And Tommy's execution of common law was absolutely first class. Tommy encountered a few personal problems. He lost one of his good mates, I believe, and stuff like that. And he's really struggled to kind of cope with the loss of one of his mates and stuff. So, but we need to try and re-engage with Tommy and try and get him back in the fold, as I said. But back to answering your question, Steve, Tommy Swan done a lot of good work over the years, and so did Robert Sproul, whereby we printed out some information, some primary and fundamental values of legal lawful, and what we done was we got them laminated and we had them downsized so that people could keep them in their wallets, their inside pocket, for quick reference if they were found themselves in a situation whereby they were dealing with the constables and they maybe forgot or whatever. So that's something that we can look at to maybe reproduce a few of these, these kind of quick reference kind of laminated cards or whatever.
Yeah, and with regards to sort of books or website resources, is there anything you think, Murray? Like you mentioned to me earlier, there was a guy in Scotland who did some stuff as well, and
one in particular, Stephen. One of the ones that I watched right at the very beginning when I was doing my research. It's a video. You'll get it on YouTube, and you'll still get it on YouTube to the day. And it's called A Sovereign's Wish. I think I sent you the other night there.
A Sovereign's Wish, right? Okay.
It's a smashing version of. It's a Scottish guy. He talks very slow and deliberate, and he explains it to a T. And he also uses examples of the likes of Nicola Sturgeon and these people talking, politicians, where they're conceding the fact that this is all, it's all very much valid, because that is a big question mark that always gets presented to people like myself. That doesn't work. That's just hearsay. That's not really. You're not living the real world. So I would guide people towards a video called A Sovereign's Wish. And it's quite a long video, but it's very, very slow and deliberate. And the thing is that what I've done and what I do and still do, Steve, is that I listen over and over again. And over again, if I'm out cycling, I'm out doing the garden, I'm at my work, maybe in the night shift, I listen constantly and I go over it and I go over it and over it. And that way it eventually sinks in, and you can then speak fluently and you can explain to other people. So A Sovereign's Wish is one absolutely that I would recommend to get people started.
Well, that's it. So the people who have came along to this tonight, they're interested in common law. They'd like it to work more. They'd like to know more about it, but they don't want to be pushy with it. They don't want to cause, bother with it. They just want to protect themselves and be a bit more knowledgeable.
So basically, they're exercising their rights by getting that knowledge, Steve. They're not doing anything wrong. All they're doing is protecting the rights that have never been taught before. Now, you tell me what's wrong with that. All you're looking for is transparency and to deal in truth and fact. I don't find that an issue at all. That's the way life's supposed to be. If you want to be talking about doing things transparent and fair, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if you can get in and out of these, I mean, it's not, and to be honest, for any of us, it's not about, common law isn't about interactions with the cops. You know, in reality, we don't really want to have any interactions with the cops. You know, and they in most cases, I don't think want interactions with us. I mean, how have you found them overall, Murray, when you've been dealing with them? The ones, I know you've had mixed sort of things over the period, because you've gone through the real dark time last year, I think, at George Square. You know, lockdown, and they were pretty much closing it down and saying, right, it's not happening at all. And it was nice to see when George Square came back to life, because, you know, Robert put his stamp on it there and was basically saying, this is happening, you know. And it wasn't happening in other parts of Scotland. Robert got it going before anybody else did, actually, I think, which was,
Steve, I would like to take this opportunity to appeal to the viewers and to the wider public, right? I would like to take this opportunity for people to lose the fear of this alleged deadly virus that's out there. We're 99.97% recovery rate. I appeal to the public here and now, and the wider public in the audience, to come down, come to events that like you've organised in the past, or other people. I know there's all different groups and stuff. I'm appealing to people to come and to stand and to come and ask questions, to listen and to listen to reason, and allow people like myself, Robert Sproul, Tommy Swan, and other guys, you know, Paddy Hogg and all these other guys that are like-minded like us. I would like the people to come down and engage with us, and we'll make the time away from public speaking and everything else we're doing. We'll make the time to engage with people and to explain any questions or any insecurities. And I'm quite sure, given that opportunity, guys like myself will make it very, very digestible and reasonable, that people, the normal people that know there's a lot of this official narrative does not sit right. People like myself that's had over a decade worth of research and knowledge on all this that's coming about, I will try my best to put it in layman's terms, any question that people want to ask. And that way, they're going to get a truer, better, you know what I mean? They've got a better idea of what's actually taking place and why it's taking place, the instruments they're using, and everything else that follows after you have the initial sort of primary and fundamental conversations on the subject.
Yeah, and these meetings and these conversations, Murray, will increase their knowledge and their confidence, and then, you know, that'll just blossom from there. That's particularly important, as you say. That video you sent me the other day, I think you sent me it. You sent me at, I was up late, so you sent me at 3 in the morning. I got up about 6 or something, and I saw it, and I thought, oh, you know what, I'll just listen to it while I'm in bed. I could easily go through 2 hours worth of stuff in the morning as I'm getting up.
Yeah.
You know, so I've done that a couple of times with the videos you sent me. I just lie it next to my pillow, listen to it, and it's kind of going in. You know, I might be drifting in and out of sleep, but it's going in.
Yeah.
You know, and you're definitely thinking more. So, you know, I would like to know more about it. I'd like to, you know, again, for no real reason other than I think we should know
absolutely
the way the laws of our natural position have actually came and been usurped.
Let me present it to you like this, Steve. The human race in general, why would people not be taught your fundamental rights as a human being? And why would people not be taught the law of the land that we live on?
Yeah.
Why were these two things not introduced to us? That's another question I know the answer to. What's the name for that? When you're asking a question but you know the answer, there's a name for that.
Rhetorical question. A rhetorical question.
Rhetorical question, Steve. You need to, I'm going to ask the viewers to forgive me because I've been night shift all week and I'm not functioning full capacity, and that's why Steve sent a video at 3 in the morning the other morning there. I'm just coming off the night shift and I'm not functioning. and 100% capacity. So
you're just back to work, Murray. You've been on the furlough for a wee bit of time. That's you back to work. I mean, off the record, how are you finding being back in the land of the living?
It's difficult, Steve. It was very difficult because we had a great, as everyone's aware, we had a great spell of weather there right through the summer, and I've just been on one sort of 7 month. That's about a 7-month vacation there, and people know that when you're off your work for a fortnight and you go on holiday and you're enjoying drinks and eating and enjoying the sun and all these things, that after a fortnight you struggle to get back into the way.
I know.
Mind 7 months.
Well, that's why I was asking you, Murray. There's a lot of this furlough is just about to come to an end, and a lot of these people aren't going to have their jobs, and the ones who are going back are going to be in for a little tough time. A lot of these businesses have learned to survive without these people.
Well, this is the thing, Steve. This is enormous as well. We are now heading for the eye of the storm regarding this Agenda 21 that we speak about now. I tried to refrain from talking about Agenda 21 now.
Yep.
I feel as if I've got to kind of touch on it just at the tail end of this interview here.
Absolutely.
And again, it's to create the awareness. But I didn't want to get in too heavy with using words and language that people could maybe, kind of steer you towards the conspiracy theorists and all that. I tried to stay away from that because I think, like you've said to me before, we've got to make this palatable. We've got to make it digestible to people that's not really done an awful lot of research, and they're still trying to come to terms with what they've been told's happening with the news and everything else, when we know different, because we've done our homework a long time ago and we've done our research and we understand exactly what's taking place. And it isn't by chance. This is by design, and we know it's by design because we know the way the ruling class of humanity. We know how they work and we know their thoughts. I mean, they make it clear. They make it obvious. They've never hidden the fact. And I'll give you a couple of examples there, Steve, just to touch on that to back up what I'm saying. The ruling class have always believed that the world's overpopulated with human beings. They believe that human beings are contributing largely to global warming and climate change. We used to have manual wars that used to get rid of hundreds of thousands of people every time there was a conflict. Humanity's no longer got that option of manual wars where we've went nuclear. This is where I believe that this virus that came about in 2020, this is only my opinion, and there's all different opinions, and I'm entitled to my opinion through free will and freedom of speech and all the rest of it. But I believe that this has been a biochemical that's been manufactured in some lab and put out there. This is my belief. But again, I don't want to get in too heavily in that, because maybe all the good work that we've done up to now to try and entice people to come and listen to us, I'll maybe just knock it right out the ballpark. So
that's what I'm saying. It's quite a sensitive tightrope that we walk all the time, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Because you can get straight in. I mean, nobody. You acclimatise. You've got to acclimatise. People. You don't jump straight into a hot bath. You dip your toe in and you don't jump straight into a cold sea, Murray.
Yeah.
It's not a pleasant experience. You've got to acclimatise in, or it's too much too soon, and you'll just disappear. You'll run for the hills.
It gives you shock, doesn't it? It's a shock and awe.
People are like that though, but there's a lot of people waking up, Murray, and the whole problem is they don't think the government would do anything bad. And the Western governments have done a major number on us to make us believe that over the years, that they have our interests at heart. So that's the hardest point to get over. Yeah.
I've got an explanation for that, Steve. This has nothing to do with Western governments. The Western governments have been advised by the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, the European Union.
Yeah.
The very people that are at the chairs, at the very top, the principals of all these organizations, I risk sounding outlandish and stuff, but fact again is that the people like Klaus Schwab, these people, they derive from the Nazi Third Reich. These people don't have the same empathy you and I have, Steve. These people are a totally different animal. Now, for instance, the Romans, this is where this comes from. The ancient Babylonians derived into the Romans. The Roman era derived into the Nazi Third Reich. And then these people nowadays have derived from the Third Reich, and that's factual. And if you do your research, you'll get to understand and establish that this is the facts. So these people don't think like you and I. And we're thinking, why would they do that? Well, why would they do that? Because our government, Western governments, have been advised from these very people. Now, another thing people would say is that even just talking about governance themselves, the government wouldn't do that. Well, that's the same people that have already conceded and admitted through generalised conversation that governments and politicians vastly, they're not to be believed and not to be trusted because they tell nothing but lies a lot of the time for self-interest. So there is an understanding, and people will concede that the fact that governments and politicians are no great at telling the truth. They're very economical with the truth, to put it in a better, a more diplomatic form.
Yeah, and well, this is it, because this awakening is happening. They're everywhere, and some of them are going to be woken up rather abruptly because of maybe things that happen to them or their family, and they're going to get a wee shock, potentially, Murray, pretty fast. But anyway, listen, we're kind of just running over time, and I like to keep these things 2 times. So listen, thank you for your time tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure. We got there in the end with the technology. When we talk about these things, it's because it's quite an organic sort of open discussion. It's kind of difficult to make sure we cover everything, but we've covered a lot of really good stuff tonight, Murray, and we've whet the appetites of a few, and then hopefully people come back for more. We'll get some of these, we'll maybe get some of anything that you send to me, I'll put into the forum, or you put your stuff into the forum as well. Any good videos that would help people that you think are good, that's going to save them hours and hours of research. You're not going to put any crap in there. So that would be really good. And then if we do some more of this stuff, it would be useful as well. Listen, thank you to everybody who watched, and it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you again, Murray. You're a good man. You're doing some good work, and I've got a lot of confidence in you when you're on the job. I really like to see you about with these protests and stuff, because I know that you're there for the right reasons. And thank you for everything that you do, and keep up the good work, mate.
Can I just take this opportunity to thank yourself, Steve, for giving me the opportunity to come onto the platform to try and give the people the tools. And also, I would like to take this opportunity to thank a lot of people that influenced me and helped me and coached me along. As I say, guys like Robert Sproul, Tommy Swan, Paul Connor, guys that I stand with week in, week out. A lot of very, very astute, clever guys that are passionate about humanity. So again, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank a lot of these guys that I stand with week in, week out, and are doing a lot of great work.
Yeah, me too. That's appreciated, buddy. So listen, well, thank you everybody, and that's been great, and appreciate your time, and it's been an absolute pleasure, Murray.
Yeah, thanks again, Steve.
All right, mate.